to Back Pocket's 2021 Video Game Awards for Excellence in Video Games as voted on by us, the hosts of the Back Pocket 2021 Video Game Awards for Excellence in Video Games. I'm Nick.
I'm Steph.
I'm Gus.
I'm Peter. And we're surprised.
Oh, you better be surprised because today's category is... Oh, I did not expect this. 2021's biggest surprise. Thank you very much.
I forgot the theatrical read from
Yeah.
last year.
And I was delightfully surprised by it.
Thank you. 2021's biggest video game surprise. And this one, I felt I had lots of surprises, but I had to narrow it down to two,
Yep.
as did we all. So let's go around the horn and shock each other. Steph,
Yes.
what attacked you in the night?
I'm going to start with a game that we all played very recently, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I would not have played that game if it wasn't the game that we chose for Game Club.
Yeah.
It was not something that I would directly seek out. I enjoy Marvel stuff as much as any person who has never previously enjoyed Marvel before they started making giant movies about it.
Yeah. As much as any person is legally obligated. That's all that is made anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I like it fine. And I think Guardians have been some of the more funner of the Marvel films, but I didn't feel any particular love for those characters. And so playing through their video game was not like high on my list of priorities. As soon as I started seeing your reactions to it, I was like curious. And as soon as I started playing it, I think I immediately felt so grateful that it created a deeper understanding of these characters and what makes them great that I feel like didn't translate from comic to film.
Yep.
And I feel like now I'll even enjoy the films more, knowing that I've had this kind of experience with these characters that are just so beautifully fleshed out. I love that the story allows us to get to know them as a team and how they interact with each other, that there's so much of an emphasis on checking in with each other's feelings. I know that sounds really lame, but it was just like, it really hits you in the kind of warm and fuzzies when you are constantly watching Peter Quill, who is kind of...
He's a blank. He's pretty a blank everyman.
He's presented as a bit of a douchebag, a self-absorbed douchebag, and he's actually really sweet and very much involved in how everyone is feeling.
If you just saw a picture of him, you would think he's a Nazi. And it is astounding. I hated him at the beginning of this game because I was just like so unimpressed with what this character was. And by the end of the game, I was like, "You are my favorite protagonist that I have played." Besides maybe Life is Strange, you are my favorite character to play.
I think we may have brought in some baggage from the films as well. Chris Pratt's character portrayal of the character is very douchey.
I think it's less that and more that I actually quite liked his portrayal of the character in the first film, but I think I've come to hate him as an actor, and that has now coloured my feelings of the character.
That's fair as well.
Yeah,
but I think I agree. It was a hard part of the ice that needed to melt was the character of Peter Quill being anything but shit, and I think they did it well. And I think it started from the moment the game starts, where you're in his bedroom reading the album sleeve of the music and stuff, and it's like it humanized him so quickly for me that I was like ready to let the character like be more than what I thought it was going to be, and it very quickly did that. I think it took until you meet Nikki and see him interacting with Nikki.
That's where I fell in love with him.
Yeah, I was like,
I agree.
I'm all yours, man.
I think I was already on my way there. I don't think the bedroom stuff had the same effect on me from the beginning of going, oh, okay.
I think
it's more. What my point was, in hindsight, they do a good job of laying the groundwork for going like, this is a character that's more than the cardboard cutout that you saw in the cinema when you walked in to watch.
But for me, what did it was starting this as a crew of people that have a history already, that have a backstory, and for Peter Quill as well, that means there's not all this antagonistic nature of them all fighting, which is what the films really
learning
pissed me
to
off.
get along.
They're all clashing, and then they find what they like. They were already pretty much on their way there, which made I think Peter Quill so more likable that he didn't butt heads with every member.
But they still managed to put enough conflict within the group that made me worried. You know what I mean? There was when Rocket kind of like has his
full spat,
bat
and
and
leaves.
storms
Yeah.
off. I was like legitimately like, have I made a decision?
It's my fault?
that
Yeah.
it's broken up the band?
Rocket
just
will
like-
remember this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
a
yeah.
nicer place to start from, having this crew, having this band that we know they're the Guardians,
Yeah.
and then have that turmoil happen later on. And so as a surprise, I was like, oh, and as a way to warm to Peter, I was like, oh, I was totally on board once I saw that they all liked him and he liked them, and it was a nicer place to start from, I feel.
It was really great. And I think gameplay wise, I enjoyed the sort of different planets that we went to and the kind of like ragtag, group of people, going through the galaxy and stuff like that. I think also we talked about this in the Game Club stream, but I think for me, that thing was all of the hidden objects that I kept coming across that ended up being sort of unlocking story points for me that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten if I hadn't gone to the trouble of finding it or discovering it or making it important. I spent money that was supposed to pay off the fine that we had on a doll for Gamora because I knew that she collected them, and I only found that because I was exploring nowhere and I found this weird shop, and that became a massive key to unlocking a really personal story that strengthened our relationship. And it was just really, I just was not expecting this from a Marvel game.
Yeah, totally.
Especially off the back of Marvel's Avengers, which was like, last year's disappointment.
I think that's the other half of the surprise.
Yeah.
Is that Marvel's Avengers was so poorly received that the expectations coming into this were pretty low. And then after that first demo, people were like, what is this? Like, because they really focused on the gameplay, which obviously you kind of have to do when you're such a story-based game. It's hard to show that off.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, oh, okay, they're just kind of, you're switching between them. And the combat was kind of satisfying to uninteresting, depending on where you land on that scale, but not incredible, I think. So it was truly the story that took everyone by surprise.
Yeah.
And how well it was told.
The other thing that you mentioned is like seeing all these cool planets and all these worlds. That's the thing that had potential for me in the Guardians galaxy when I in the Guardians setup when I saw the films. I was like, it felt to me like they needed a quick scene where they were on a weird planet, so suddenly a set designer built a space that looked funky but didn't have any purpose. Whereas here you got to spend a whole level traversing to Lady Hellbender's, which is this huge vicious planet where everything's threatening and everything's dangerous, and you got to spend time there, which is why it felt realized and why this didn't feel just like what's a weird alien texture and color to combine to make a silly looking planet.
Because
Like,
then there's that
this
idea,
made sense.
and then there's that idea, like that's such a good point, of her fortress being in the middle of that huge basin, and it's like a 16-kilometer
Walk out
bridge
to it,
that you walk on, and it's like that's.
But it's being-
you just commit to that walk for so long, and it's like that's been really thought out about.
It's
like,
being circled by
it's
those
so
giant
dramatic.
creatures that we saw earlier on that exist.
Yeah, it's
Again,
great.
it's not a set designer
Yeah.
or even a comic book artist going, well, this would look cool for a flash
It
frame.
feels really it feels really creatively interesting in terms of creating alien environments and alien experiences that you would come across, like weird creatures and that kind of stuff. I think for me it was just everything that I was not expecting. It did, and that was such a delightful surprise. I think also. Last night I was playing Icarus, which is a survival game on an alien planet, and it is an alien planet that has deer and wolves on it.
Oh yeah.
I really felt like
North Dakota.
coming off this alien experience
Where you're
that
fighting
felt-
cubes.
where you're fighting jelly cubes and like weird
them.
alien creatures, and there's strange substances that happen and different kind of galaxy organizations. Like it felt really, I believed the world that I was in.
Yeah, totally. And I started enjoying it really early on and had that surprise because I didn't expect much from it. Had the surprise. And every time I came back to it, I came back with like, it's going to fall off, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
going to be, and it's such a long game. It's
is.
like a 15, 16-hour game. And I kept coming back to it going like, there's no way they can keep this up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily my brain saying that, it was my heart saying that.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
They can't possibly live up to now the level
You were
that I feel
preparing
about this
yourself
game.
for what you felt was the inevitable
Yeah.
disappointment.
And you've
Yeah,
played
absolutely.
enough games to have that feeling and have that experience.
Because it's
of going,
happened to you
okay,
before.
I'd actually
Yeah,
say
I'm
you're the
forced
most
away.
jaded one in the room. When it
Yeah,
comes to that
yeah,
stuff.
Totally,
yeah.
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 And it just surprised me again and again and again. Like I
And it
kept
was
lowering my
funny.
expectations, and it
Oh,
kept
so
being-
funny.
It was legitimately
brilliant.
funny.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I had multiple moments where I did my ha
Yeah,
down the other end of the
Patented
house.
ha.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny. It was really emotional, and I think you're spot on with the idea that The other thing that you see so often in anything where you're fighting aliens is that all the aliens are kind of the same.
Yeah.
And that you're fighting these cubes, and then you're fighting weird creatures. The Nova Corps stuff, the brainwashing cult thing. It did feel like you're in a whole galaxy of different races that are all constantly colliding with each other.
There's even a great gag where he walks out of a room and there's some kind of tentacle alien, and there's an understanding that he slept with a tentacle alien.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, shut
And that was
up,
just-
fully.
Yeah, and that was just like totally normal.
Yeah, no, it's great. What a surprise. What a surprise.
It really was.
Peter, your first surprise.
My first surprise was a type of game that I didn't expect to fall in love with, and it was Dread Hunger. A partially cooperative but a subterfuge kind of game of hidden Among Us style, I guess, is like the most obvious recent video game connection to this kind of werewolf Secret Hitler style. You're playing with and against your friends.
Two of your group are imposters. Trying to sabotage.
So in a social deception setting and in the Arctic.
Yeah.
Such a great setting.
Really great setting.
Wonderful setting.
A period piece in a hostile environment. Or like an old-fashioned-y take on it, but being not just like, oh, you're sailors between islands. You're in the freaking Arctic. Like,
Yeah.
Or Antarctic. I don't know.
Arctic, and you're on.
Penguins.
You're trying to, the history of it. They're trying to find the passage through the Arctic, and the amount of people that died in that endeavor, and just being able to come through and see the failed expeditions before you, and that's part of what the resources that you're going for. And so all of the setting is really brilliant. And then there's this game of cat and mouse and like when to play your cards as the imposters and
the thrall
and the bone charm, one of the finest weapons.
Picking up a bone charm here.
Got a bone charm. Watch the bone charm.
I think as well, it's like with the other kind of deception games, you're very kind of limited in that you're kind of doing very menial, nothing tasks, and then people are trying to kind of murder you. Well, in a beautiful setting.
Yeah.
People are trying to
they're looking at the
murder you
setting
and stuff like that.
Them
yeah,
in the back.
In the back. But this was like you were so involved in what you were doing and trying to, as a group, cooperatively survive and participate in things that would help move us forward, that it made it so much easier to be surprised when someone betrayed you, because the environment was so hostile, and so it was constantly in Among Us. You don't have to constantly make sure you're fed and warm and like that you're getting enough supplies for anything. You're just you're clicking on things. As deception games go, they're so simple, but having this kind of complex survival mechanic and then putting the deception on top of that made for such a uniquely like stressful dynamic.
Very
and then
painting. I always felt doomed. It didn't matter who. I find playing it that it doesn't matter which side I'm on. I feel doomed to fail the whole time, and that's an interesting feeling.
Yeah.
And I usually find social deception things like typically played them more as board games and stuff really exhausting. Like it's a kind of thing where it just drains you because of the amount of lying you're doing.
May I remind you of the week-long game of Subterfuge we played?
I know.
Which I think we should play again really soon. But that was all of us, you, me, Miles, the few people from my fantasy football team that played with us.
Yeah.
We all were like, we can't play that for years. That was the worst week of our lives.
It's so stressful.
One of the most brilliant weeks of
Yeah.
our lives.
It's also because like you spend in Among Us or any of those like other games, you don't talk. You turn off your microphone.
Yeah.
You're right. This is
in this you're developing
if you're not
relationships
talking,
with people.
You're just becoming more guilty. But
So you're like, all right, well, you and I, let's go out on this hunting mission. We'll try and do this. Oh, I ran out of this. That's okay. I can get this for you. Like, or somebody gets attacked by a wolf. I'm going to save them. And then you kind of develop a bond, and you're kind of doing this. And all of a sudden, they turn a gun on you, and it's like you feel your heart just breaks, and you're like, no, I trusted you. We went through all of that stuff together. This can't be real. No.
So yeah, I mean, for me, like it was surprising in so many ways. Didn't know this game was coming. didn't think I would love it as much as I do. And didn't think that I would have the energy to play so much of it that I found.
Tons.
But like, playing 4 games took 4 hours. But like, at the end of it, I was still keen for more.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's such a brilliant little package. And I hope we see more and more expansions to it as the years go on.
Yeah. Well, it's been very successful, so I'm sure that we will. Yeah. Gus.
Yeah, I guess mine would be not so much a surprise in the sense that the game should be very good because it's gone through many iterations or many sort of sequels, but I was surprised at just how much I couldn't put this down, which was Metroid Dread, a game that I guess a surprise was that everyone was looking forward to a new Metroid game being in the vein of Metroid Prime, being the first-person version of playing that, the really successful GameCube series. So when people saw a trailer for this, everyone kind of sunk back in their seats and went, oh, okay, we're going back to classic Metroid, which is your Metroidvania, dungeon crawling, all this kind of stuff. I think the initial trailer was underwhelming for a lot of people. Okay, not Nick.
No. I would just say that, like, this game... the words Metroid Dread were first mentioned 16 years ago. So this is a game that has been rumored to come out for 16 years.
Wow.
And then people thought was dead for a decade. So when it did come out, like, the reaction I saw was people going, what? They actually made it?
I think I missed the boat on a lot of that in the sense that, it was talked about as this was a continuation of the very first Metroid game, Metroid Fusion, which I think was a 3DS game. So within all of that, there've been all these skewed versions.
And then it was Fusion Frenzy.
Thank you, Peter. And so, there was, I think, a hint that they wanted to make Dread when they made Fusion, or they were talking about it as a sequel maybe before that. So there was expectation in that vein, but I will be on the side that was the people waiting for a Metroid Prime game on Switch.
Totally.
And when it wasn't that, I thought, okay, I'll check out. I won't play this. It comes out, I think, all right, let me just give the first hour or two a go and I'll see if it gets its hooks in. And my God, it did not let up. It was so engaging, and in a genre of game that I fall off so easily, which is any Metroidvania, your Hollow Knights, your Oris, all that stuff. They are great fun in the moment, but if you put them down for a little too long, it's so easy to fall off. It's so easy to lose where you were. It's so easy to lose that momentum. And I think they did a great job with this one of making sure that you always knew where you were going. We talked about it when we were sort of reviewed it, that there were moments that we checked game guides, but they weren't because we were at least in my case, I wasn't frustratingly lost. I just needed a push. I just maybe made a silly decision or hadn't made the right decision. Everything else, it was fascinating at how well I could keep moving forward through very labyrinthy areas, just kind of keeping it all in the back of my head. And that's not to me, that's the design. That's how they put you through these spaces, how they give you these new abilities. It's satisfying all the time to play a game where you are stripped of all your powers and you get them back one by one. But I was really surprised at how they kept the Emmy mechanic, which is these robots that hunt you down in these certain sections, how they kept that fresh the whole way through. The first time you face one, it's terrifying, but you defeat it, obviously, because you need to progress. And you think, well, how are they going to keep this terrifying every time I run into one? And they managed to. They managed to give it an extra ability. They give it a different sort of time that it can attack you, or a way that you need to use your new ability to counter it, which is always a really clever Nintendo-ish kind of thing, to be like, we've come up with a mechanic, but we've come up with 3 different ways for you to use it. It's not just a solve a problem. You can now use it in multiple ways. So in that sense, I was surprised that I was engaged by it, and that I could not stop thinking about it. And I was rushing home to get another couple of hours with it, and to keep pushing through what I felt like was the perfect length. It didn't do heaps of backtracking in the way that was, can be really nauseating with these games, to go, ugh, I go back here and now what do I do? I know people had issues with the map, but I think it did the best job it could to
I liked the map. I saw people had issues with the map as well, and I was like,
I thought it was
who
great.
are you?
It had
map is giving me all the information I need. My issues are with the controls, not the map.
Look, I didn't have any issue with the controls. I felt very at home playing it. I played it not handheld. I played it with the Pro controller.
Yeah, right.
The best controller ever made. But little things in the map, like if you finished a room, it would change the color of it to just little things that didn't tell you at the beginning. It really helped push you in the right direction. So yeah, I was surprised I finished it. I'm really proud I finished it. It's like, these are those.
Proud of you too.
Thank you so much. These are those kind of games that, like, they're the classics that everyone talks about, like, I've finished a Metroid game now. Every other game I fall off at least halfway through, I think, and it made me want to go and play other Metroid titles.
So, I mean, a game that it got compared to a lot, which obviously this game took inspiration from, was Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight's one of my favorite games of all time, but Hollow Knight is also like a 40-hour game.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's a ton in there where you're like, huge spaces, lots of getting lost, lots of frustration, the good frustration, but frustration. I think that the thing with this is like 12 hours. It's you like, it's so tight. And like you said, it is always pushing you towards the next thing in a really organic kind of way. I was so surprised by this as well. I think it's phenomenal. And talking about it now, tomorrow we will be recording our Game of the Year stuff, and I'm looking at it now. I'm like, I need to probably look at my Game of the Year list again and see if I can squeeze this on somewhere.
It's very high up in the list for me, and yeah, part of that comes from being a lovely surprise in the year that you weren't expecting it. But yeah, the amount of polish, how it looked, and like just the atmosphere of it, how they can do so much atmosphere with barely any dialogue. Like, it's all just a computer talking to you, but the eyes and the performance, or like the way the character interacts with everything was very surprising as well. How she shoots it. Like, oh, it's the nuance. It's the nuance of it.
A fine shot.
Yeah, and the reason I think, it's short in the way that I think a lot of games in the series that are of this way that they design them are made for multiple playthroughs. You finish it and it's like, your adventure starts again. I was like, no, it doesn't. A lot of people who love this type of game, they go straight back in and they run it even faster, and they really enjoy that aspect to it, which is, I think, a comment on how fun it can be to play and replay in that case. So,
Great
yeah.
game.
Oh, so good.
Great game.
I want you two to play it. You should definitely play it. It's
Yeah,
so good.
I mean, I've played so many Metroidvania games. It'd be nice to kind of play
Go back
Metroid.
to I freaking love it.
I think you'll hate it, but you might like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
I think I'll hate it.
think you'll hate it, but I like how you humored him. So my
I'm very
first,
proud of me too.
my first prize is Pokemon Unite. Pokemon Unite, guys.
Remember when we all didn't shut up about
It's
it?
about time. It is about time I like the Pokemon. Yeah,
This was the MOBA.
the MOBA.
Yeah.
Don't
free
care for
MOBA.
Pokemon, and do care for MOBAs, but don't have time for MOBAs. And
So you like portability.
Look what came along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look what came along. The perfect amalgamation of an awful IP and a soul-sucking genre put together.
Would you describe this as MOBA light?
Oh,
Yeah.
but not so light that it's like not like not like that, like it's a phone game, even though it is a phone game.
Literally a phone game.
But it's not like what you would think of like a phone game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Even though it does have pay to win mechanics.
And also, I also think a lot of times when you slap a light kind of like ideology onto something, it's so light that it's not going to be a stepping stone. I feel like this is a really good stepping stone game to more advanced MOBAs. So
Right.
Plays great, looks great. It was so much fun. I think the character lineup is really strong. The different abilities are.
Who was your main?
he's an Alolan Ninetales.
I did a lot of Ninetales. I haven't played this
Specifically Alolan Ninetales, the ice one. Ninetales is
All right,
traditionally a fire
nerd.
Pokemon, which we're all aware of.
So I haven't played this in months, and I am planning on spending a lot of time with it over the Christmas break, because it is that kind of just like, pick up 10 minutes, you're done. I don't think it should have worked, and it did. Nintendo also supporting any kind of online multiplayer game is just not what they do.
Yeah.
And
This one's free to play
Free to
and
play.
free to download, and you don't need any of their services for it too.
no, it's free to play. It's just pay to win.
Oh, is it actually, or is it just cosmetics?
There's some stuff that does give you a bit of a boost.
There's a complicated thing of like, buy this currency to get this thing that then upgrades your items, and that makes you better. It is a bit shitty, but you can survive without it, but you'll be better with it. It was just a massive surprise. Just didn't see this coming. Didn't expect that it would be good when it came out. Did not expect that it would be robust enough, and it's all those things. And like Pete said, I think a really good stepping stone to MOBAs, or if you are no longer playing MOBAs, a really good like scratch that itch without having to learn something so dense.
40 minutes to a game as well.
And I totally agree with everything you said. I think it's really, really brilliant. And part of what gets it there for me is that it has some new ideas in it as well. It's not just like a clone of things like the dunking the balls on the other person's tower,
Yep. Oh,
destroys
yeah,
it,
yeah.
and like I haven't seen that in a MOBA before. Maybe it's existed in something, and I really feel like all of there's a lot of thought that went into. They had to have Pikachu, but they also picked other things that they knew they could do cool animations and cool abilities with.
And the like,
Really
it
considered.
hides the score so that you don't rage quit.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you are so far behind because
right.
it
You
just
can't come
it just
back from
goes.
it. Yeah.
Your team is far ahead, but then it's like the other team is close, and it's like, oh, okay, well, like we're still in this.
Yeah.
So,
But you're right. It also just helps with the idea of not having matches being thrown and
You're
disconnects.
overwhelmingly-
the porting to not porting the managing everything on a console controls I thought was fantastic as well, like using
on a controller,
thumbsticks
yes,
and, versus MOBAs traditionally
totally,
played with
yeah,
mouse and keyboard, and like how do you make it playable with thumbsticks and button presses. And that was my big takeaway from it, was I was like, wow, this really, once you get your head around it, is a really fun way to play something super technical at the same time.
No, I was a huge fan. Yeah, so super surprised by this and looking forward to playing a lot more over the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Steph, surprise number 2.
Yes, my surprise number 2 is Valheim, because Valheim came out this year. It came out this year.
February, yeah.
Oh God.
I know. I still don't believe it. I think it's wrong.
Maybe I might be.
I think it's wrong.
I think
No,
I might be
I'm pretty
wrong.
sure it was early
There would've
Feb.
been
It
an
was
early
like
access
its first
possibly.
early access.
When did we do the Death Maze?
Death
2nd of
Maze?
February 2021.
There you go.
But was it early access?
That's his initial release date, right? Not release date.
Do you not
It was
want?
released
do you not
in
want to
early
talk about
access
it?
No, I
on
do.
February. I was
I
like,
do.
didn't you pick this? We didn't force this on you. 2nd
no,
of
I-
February 2021
There
is
you go.
early access release date.
Yeah.
When did we do our? Because this is what Peter said. It was before. It's because there's been so many weird lockdowns, and we've
Yeah.
Oh, no,
we went to remote.
when
We did
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That would have been June or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Death Maze was June.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it came out this year.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why it's on the 2021
21
Video
list.
Game Awards for excellence in video games.
That's why it's
voted on by host.
your
host the back pocket.
2021.
Yeah.
I still like. There's part of me that just will never believe it. I think.
Okay.
Gus is having a stroke right now. He's like, you picked this.
Yeah.
I know.
We're not
I
making
know,
you
but
talk
it's just
about it.
Weird. It's
It
so
is weird. Time is weird.
It was one of my favorite games this year. It was obviously it's a nature-based game with based around Viking
With a
mythology.
Nordics
Oh,
bent.
yeah,
What a
already
surprise.
appealing to me. But I think I didn't expect to love it as much as I did because the group all in on building and the creativity around building
Yep.
was
Yeah.
really, really fun. I've never really enjoyed building in a game as much as I have with Valheim. I loved that the creatures of the forest could kind of come out at any moment, but we all kind of had these really clear architectural designs that we wanted to focus on and build our village with a very specific aesthetic. I loved all of the like little missions we'd have to go on to new biomes to kind of fight bosses and get new materials to be able to advance our culture. It was just really, really fun. And it was a very particular environmental feeling of like peace and enjoyment. There was something about it. It wasn't super realistic, but it had a painterly quality.
Yeah,
The
all that
music was
diffused light.
Yeah, the music was really wonderful. Like I really enjoyed being in that world, even though it wasn't the most graphically intensive.
I was going to say, because
incredible
most
realm.
survival games kind of have that janky rust
Yeah.
arc.
Yeah.
That sort of like,
Yeah.
everything is ugly and harsh. and
Everything
it's
looks
felt
great
very-
in screenshots. But
Yeah.
looks terrible.
Yeah,
in
but when you
motion.
start eating poo in Ark, you're just like,
And
this isn't how you do it in real life at all.
And it was funny in that, like, most of the time, because we within the sort of safety of our village, where we were just really focused on just making it look awesome and authentic, we were you weren't bothered by too much. Like, things would come in, but we'd build a wall and stuff like that. And the more that you ventured out, the more you kind of risked maybe dying and having to do a corpse run. But occasionally, when we wanted to kind of go to a new biome to start getting new materials, to kind of make a big jump in progress, we all had to really band together to take down those bosses. Like that swamp boss was like, that was a mission.
was full on.
I think about that all the time, where I'm like, we had to build structures in the swamps to stay alive from the general environment that was trying to kill you, let alone this boss that had such a huge health bar and did such a crazy amount of damage. It was just, we attempted that boss fight multiple times. And when we finally succeeded at it, it really felt like an incredible group accomplishment in the best possible way. And then we got to kind of go home and take all of our spoils from that biome to kind of build our aesthetic city even better. And then, you know, the community getting involved in it, like it was really cool to have. We had a pocket server.
Yeah.
We were kind of, people were building that beautiful tree house. Do you remember?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It had that
beautiful death maze. Where we all died.
The surprise
Death
for
Maze was
me
great.
with the game, because I never played it beyond what we played on the show, was that it had that sort of Minecraft, everyone's in on a server maintaining and building this thing that doesn't get wiped when we shut down.
Yeah.
Like that felt, there was something I know for you really special about revisiting that every night.
I thought that, but then to combine it with those tailored boss fights with that stone circle that you go to, that's something I saw that was new that I hadn't really experienced or seen in that survival. Often it's just see how long you can go for and see until, you know, a little PvP action as well. But this having that that sort of tailored cool boss design was a cool addition that I think they really benefited the game.
And
It definitely was part of what I enjoyed about it. The idea that there was an end. And I never had to get there, but so many survival games don't have an end. And that's so overwhelming that I just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's like, oh, I'm gathering resources for a purpose.
Yeah.
And that purpose is to get strong enough to defeat the bosses. And once the bosses are done, like, you would just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, but the idea that there is an objective was like really satisfying as like, oh, this is why I just spent 8 hours chopping trees.
Yeah.
And it blew up as well. Like this game got huge.
It was so great, and it was a great kind of cooperative thing, because like later on in the year we got into Tribes of Midgard, which was also a Nordic kind of survival-y thing, but kind of a different genre, and that was such a race against time, and everyone was trying to get their own character's gear up to scratch to be able to progress. There was less of a kind of cooperative focus, whereas I feel like in Valheim, we were always kind of working to build each other up so that we could all be successful together. Because as a raiding party going to a new location, we just weren't going to survive it unless everyone was kitted out and everyone had their stuff. And it was just really fun working as a group together. And I also had friends who don't play a lot of games jump in with us too, which was a really cool experience, because it even though it was kind of niche and like you need to kind of do a lot of reading and
it's
research.
kind of hardcore.
Hardcore. For someone jumping in mechanically, it's pretty accessible, I would say. So yeah, it was just really wonderful. And I don't even remember when I first heard about Valheim, but
This 2021. 2021. 2021.
was it actually?
Yeah, it would have been.
Maybe.
You wouldn't have heard about it before.
When
What
did
year is
they
it
have
now?
any trailers or something that came out and were like, we're going to launch this game?
I don't think so, because it launched in early access, and they generally don't promote that stuff too much. Yeah, I reckon it was.
Well, then I had zero expectations for it, really, because I didn't know it existed. And then when I played it, I was like, huzzah. What an enjoyable experience. Next.
Next year's category will be huzzah! What an enjoyable experience.
I just want to remind everyone, Valheim came out this
There you
year.
go.
What? Put a button on that. That was a ride. Peter,
Yep.
surprise number 2.
Surprise number 2 for me was It Takes Two.
Hey.
Which surprised everyone, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
It's on a lot of Game of the Year lists.
It is the game of the year.
It is
According
the
to
Game of the Year
the Game
according to
Awards.
the Game Awards.
According to that show that
Doesn't
heavily,
exist.
that heavily features the creator of this game.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable experience. Steph and I played through it together, obviously as part of the game club as well. A lot of surprising ideas. We saw from the same studio A Way Out, and based on the same principle of split screen co-op being the only way to play the game. And Gus and I played that together.
We did.
And it was interesting, but it was not brilliant.
It was interesting to see that a game that shared that, and we played the whole thing, but we definitely didn't come away with the same level
An affection for it or anything.
yeah, or that memory of playing. It's like, oh yeah, we did that. Not the way that I now with Nick have the affection that we
True.
had. To
I
this
think
game.
because it's joy.
Yeah.
Joy, like playing something together that sparks joy as opposed to a prison film
Yeah.
it's a breakout film.
that isn't like full of shocking twists that you're bonding over. So yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, like the joy, a big part of this game moment to moment. There's a story that is like okay and has problems, but I think there's some good resolution in parts for some of the character arc works, some of it doesn't. Particularly all the.
I think it was well intentioned.
Absolutely, and I think that comes across.
Yep.
That it doesn't come across ever as like maliciously weird. It's
Yeah.
like it's not 12 minutes bad. It's just
Except for
like
that elephant scene.
the elephant
Well,
scene.
and just it takes a back seat in the real world story takes a back seat almost till the very end as well. Like you are talking about what's happened, but you are not experiencing it in that real world environment right up until the end, which is why it kind of feels weird.
And the whole thing is really just a thin premise to set up this fantasy that they get that allows the developers to just create fun moments every second of the game. Every corner you go around, something different.
So many.
Yeah.
It's
No
just
downtime.
Referencing, there's such an ode to video game genres as well. There's so many wonderful references in there that someone who has played a lot of video games would be like, this is so cool that you've done this in this way.
I think in the same way as you said with Guardians of the Galaxy, like, how can it maintain this? That's how I felt from a gameplay perspective. Just going like, how can you keep coming up? You could have just made 4 games, and instead you used all those ideas. I mean, you used like 12 ideas in one, but it's staggering the amount that they all work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the problems with the story, like, I feel like the fact that they're trying to make their daughter cry and the fact that they're trying to destroy her favorite toy in a really traumatic scene, I could have forgiven that, I think, if at the end of the game they had split.
Yeah.
But that the message was you can work together, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a
It doesn't
relationship
have to
together.
take 2.
It does. Well, no. It, like,
Just really tiny writing. At the top.
yeah, there are different kinds of relationships,
Totally,
and these people
totally.
can care for each other and be parents and work together and like each other, even if they're no longer, functioning in a marriage.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that annoyed me.
Yeah, totally. Because I think like throughout the whole game, it's fine that they're doing despicable things.
Yeah.
But there's no
because they're so self-involved, I guess.
Yeah,
is
the whole
thing.
yeah. And like to me, it wasn't that story or relationship that was surprising. It was entirely a gameplay thing that I think was so brilliantly executed and just such an advance on A Way Out.
Oh, totally.
The idea of A Way Out was really strong, and I love the ethos of the studio of we want to create couch co-op experiences, and A Way Out was an okay attempt at that.
Can't really remember the moments that were like gameplay focused where we had to either work together as
Literally
much.
the
It was
only thing I
just
remember
narrative
doing
perspective.
Yeah.
was crawling through a pipe together, and one going backwards and me going. You were
We
going
human
backwards and I was
centipeded
going forward so that we could human centipede. So the face clipped into the arse of the man in front.
But it was
Just
used
as
as a
Joseph
narrative
was
device, not for that bit, but like whereas everything here was you get to do this thing while I do this thing as you press these buttons while you wiggle this joystick and look at the fun we're having.
yeah, and here the way the mechanics interacted with each other like cooperatively were all not always brilliant, but mostly really, really interesting and different moments.
I did like from a story perspective that they tried to identify the things that each of these characters loved and maybe hadn't been able to appreciate or
The
explore in their
gardening.
lives, and then
Yeah.
they made that a major gameplay mechanic for them to kind of play out.
I think I said this in the game club discussion
This
because
year.
because a lot of people, it is the 2021 back. A lot of people had the issues with the story, and I had some of those. Though I will ask all those people, if you and your partner realize that you were turned into dolls because your daughter cried onto something, I'm begging you, tell me what idea would you come up with to undoll yourself? Because the only thing I can think of is make her cry again. It is the only thing I can think of, and I do not understand why people were like, I cannot believe they are trying to make her cry. It's like, fuck you. I make my kids cry all the time because I'm constantly telling my kids, you can't have that. And they burst into tears. Am I a bad human being?
I agree. I didn't think that that was the bad part. It was more like it was, and I think part of the brilliance of the game was how despicable they were to each other. Just never gave each other anything, and that warmed as the game went as well. So that was nice to see that they finally started to forgive each other for just the resentment they had for each other.
The relationship.
Great game. What a surprise.
It really was.
Gus.
Yeah, a little one that snuck through that I'd played a little bit of, and I really want to go back to. That was a big surprise. Was Knockout City. This. In all its kind of promotional material, and this year, believe it or not, in everything I saw of the game in the lead up, made me very uninterested in it from a design perspective. I think a lot of comparisons were drawn to like, oh, it's a next version of a Splatoon in a non-shooter competitive arena brawler style. And then it came out, and the gameplay was just so tight, and it had such a fun take on how to have these kind of like great little skirmishes with a team focus, but also you could go out rogue and do it yourself. And the idea of using these different powered dodgeballs, and then in the sense, the thing that caught me off guard was the idea that the rolling yourself into a little ball, catching someone else's, like, it led to these great sort of paper, scissors, rock moments where it was like...
I kept on yelling out, use me! Use me!
What I thought would be just essentially this, like, oh, I was quicker to throw the ball and caught someone off guard, turned into these amazing little...
balls.
Cooperative moments.
Cooperative, but also like the back and forth where it was like the two balls would collide and land. You'd go and grab it again.
The different
and then
types of balls.
Bounce theirs back. And, and
Halo with balls.
It literally, that's a really good comparison. It felt far more tactical in that sense, and it led to some little matches that got really sweaty. Like, and
the maps were cool too. You had little things that you'd zip around in, and like you would. Instead of a teleport, you'd go through like a pipe.
They didn't skimp on the city in putting all effort into Knockout. So
that's true. That's true. Like, as they're built as arenas, fantastic. As they look as a design, I hate them. I hate the character bottles. I hate the fashion that was this weird kind of like future greaser jackets and wacky hairstyles. Like, did nothing for me aesthetically. But I was so surprised that the game itself was just so much fun.
That's cool. That's not.
Cool.
That's so cool. Look at it.
It was cool. I like multiplayer maps.
Draft.
I like multiplayer maps that have environmental things that can fuck you up as well.
Oh, that was great. And
getting hit by a car or something when you're just trying to focus on hitting someone with a ball.
Yeah,
that is actually your friend.
As you said, cooperatively, it was fun in the sense that you would have these, like, you had to keep your wits about you, so you didn't just get stuck on one little brawl and one little skirmish, and suddenly a teammate would realize there's just this little like butting of heads between two people and be like, I need to go help my teammate out.
Yeah.
And you would get absolutely side smacked by a dodgeball. And raises a point that the idea of using dodgeball, I played Dodgeball Academia, a game that was a little indie darling.
You've had a big dodgeball year.
Well, 2 titles all in this year. But it was a different style, but it had a little 2D side scrolling version of those combat moments, and it just made for a really really fun and ongoing mechanic where it was like you could just keep knocking heads until someone would snap or like someone would drop the ball.
Yeah, that was the part where it gets faster and faster, and it was
frustrated, and you're like, oh, and then finally, someone would give up.
What it felt like is when I was a kid and playing tennis, and you would get in an involved rally, and I would start laughing because I was like, this is so ridiculous that like we're just equally matched. Like, one of us just has to die.
Yeah. We will die here together. So, look, I didn't play as much of it, and so I'm really keen to get back in because I assume it had a great response, and I'm sure they were looking at changing it up with new maps, new power.
Yeah, they had that like Hollywood expansion.
Yeah, it was a full season change. So they're doing seasons, and I think friend of the show Miles got really into it as he's kind of like he was streaming it and playing super competitively and sweaty with like his COD mates as a way to be like, well, this is hitting those same. It's itching as scratching the same itches. Thank you. So in that sense, I think it's done something really cool, and it's cool to see more non-shooter.
Yes. Totally.
Competitive games. Yeah,
absolutely. Also, the surprise for me was even though it came out before Rocket Arena. Do you remember Rocket Arena?
No.
Also made by EA, and it was a 3v3 rocket. You have rocket launchers and you shoot around a map. It looks basically identical to this. And
they went with
when Rocket League was announced, it was one of those games where I just looked at it and I was like, no one's going to play this in a week's time. And that's what this could have been.
Yeah.
But actually, it's genuinely fun and I think different, and that's why Rocket.
I almost added All Star Rumble. What was the PlayStation car fighter brawler one? hence no one remembers the name. The cards.
Fighter
last
Brawler.
year anyway.
Oh no, you mean
No, it was like- it was
All-Star
like-
Destruction
Destruction
All-Stars.
Derby. Also.
Was that last year?
yeah.
That was
No,
last
that
year.
would have been.
Didn't it launch with the console? Wasn't it like
No.
Or did it get delayed?
No, it got
it was
delayed.
this year, and the reason was I was tossing up between that and this and that, and that didn't have the complexity of the fun mechanics of the sort of paper scissors rock idea. It was just
Well, I think also the maps were very
it just
limited as well.
it was going off a gimmick rather than a mechanic.
Yeah.
Do you know when it came out?
This year?
2nd of February, the same day as Valheim.
Get out of town! What did we do? Did we black out?
Gosh, I feel
For
like
February?
we
Did
were
something
abducted
happen?
by aliens, and
Maybe.
these memories were implanted in that.
Valheim.
I remember everything about February.
what else happened on the 2nd of February?
What
got time.
happened on the
What about-
2nd?
Did anyone go back
Feb?
to that game that I saw people playing that was like a shooter, but you could make portals?
Splitgate. It was still playing
Splitgate.
Splitgate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that would
it's quite
that
good.
would be
They're now playing Halo,
bigger.
probably.
Top tweets from Tuesday, the 2nd of February, 2021. Elon Musk tweeted off Twitter for a while, which doesn't make sense.
Fuck, I wish you'd stayed off.
Barstool Sports tweeted, "This guy has a huge dump in his pants," and it was the Robin Hood CEO.
Keep scrolling.
And then Ash, Sugo_Ash said, "My flowers bloom today," and it's a picture of flowers.
When you say top
I forgot
tweets,
that.
Fucking
are these
gorgeous.
top tweets
For
in-
you?
No,
for
this
you
is
or
just
in
some
the world?
website. Here's what happened on February 22nd, 2021. Perth fire emergency and into second day. Captain Sir Tom Moore raised $57 million for Britain's NHS.
Wow.
Norco milk suppliers to get a $2 million boost as the dairy cooperative listed Farmgate milk price to 77 cents. Oh, not going to read that one. That's sad. Who
died?
Perth is in lockdown. My toddler fell off a 50-centimeter stool. What happened next is every parent's nightmare. I shouldn't laugh, but that's the most clickbaity headline of all time. And then, apparently, according to Sky News Australia, Donald Trump's
Valheim
son-in-law deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
God.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
I agree.
And then Valheim and
Car Rumble.
That was
Yep, there you
Kushner,
go.
right?
yeah,
Noble Kushner.
Nobel Kushner. That's what
He fell 50
That's what he makes
honourable
Ivanka call him in bed. Okay.
So strange. I just don't. It just does
Yep.
not feel that time is linear, and it feels.
It's because we had a mid-year gap.
This
Yeah.
segment
We
is
should
nuts.
move on.
Yeah.
The final surprise of the year.
The child surprise.
There will be no more surprises.
There'll be no more surprises. Was, for me, the Outer Wilds DLC. Echoes of
okay.
the Eye.
Is that a surprise for you?
I was about to say the
Yeah.
same thing.
What do you mean? It was a surprise. It wasn't announced. No one knew it was
That's
coming.
true.
But aren't we going under the pre?
This isn't
You
a
can
list.
change the surprise.
He can be
however you
surprised however he likes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
At least I knew February happened. The surprise, I would say I'm more surprised than anything that we've talked about today because that game is so perfect and so
Sure.
complete that you go,
It needs not
like,
a sequel.
it needs not. And what would you add to a game that the first time you play it is exactly the same as the last time you play it? Like,
How can it possibly live up to its original?
how can it live up? How can you implement it?
yeah.
Like, how do you put an expansion in a game where nothing changes over the course of like 22 minutes or whatever? It is a conundrum, and they solved it so perfectly. The DLC is wonderful. It's that surprise of going, something I love is getting something new. Surprise. They implemented it in such a organic, brilliant way. Surprise. And it's almost as good as the main game. Surprise. So I in every possible way, this was just like, and the world that you go into as well. Like you go into a space that is unlike.
Can we show it now?
Yeah, we can
we
show it.
didn't show
We'll
it in the
fucking
thing.
skip ahead.
Yeah.
Get us on the Halo,
show it.
mate.
I
Get us on the Halo.
Put a
Yeah.
spoiler thing in.
Get us on the Halo. Further.
Little more.
Further.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know. Don't describe it. Just show it and talk about why you like.
Oh, Mike.
Yeah, it looks
So
like-
no.
Surprise.
But it just I think it's one of those things. Like it makes me so excited for this team to just go. You've made 2 phenomenal games in one.
One game.
And you did something that no one should be able to do, which is put a piece of content in a perfect video game that is almost as good as the thing and doesn't ruin the initial thing, and also feels like it was always there and you just didn't realize.
And it was a pretty quick turnaround from announcement. Not turnaround, but like that was a surprise too, wasn't it? Did you know this was coming?
It got leaked in a Steam database thing.
Far off from its release?
Yeah, pretty far. Like
months.
like 4 or 5 months. We knew the name Echoes of the Eye. We didn't know what it was, and then they put out a trailer like a month and a half before it came out.
Okay, right.
So yeah. But just wonderful, and I think the biggest surprise for me was that I went a video game that I just adore so much, the chance to be I always say it's one of those games that I wish I could forget so I could play again. Yeah. And then you go, oh no, they just did that. They just gave me another one, and that's
and there's a risk.
brilliant.
There's a risk that they'll.
There's such a risk.
Something
Totally.
Really enjoy,
I was actually really wary of playing it, and I'm going to be honest, I still haven't finished it because I made the stupid decision to stream it. Yeah. And so now, and then I ran out of time to do anything.
Now
so
you feel like you need to complete it on stream?
Yeah, because everyone's so fucking nice when I'm playing it, and they're all like, "Oh, we love watching you play this, and we're so excited, and I'm so invested." And it's like, "Oh God, you're all so goddamn wonderful."
They've probably moved on, to be honest. I think you're in the clear.
Nah, they're suckers. Yeah, so I'll have to finish it.
What a roller coaster.
Plus it's a little scary.
So I've heard
There's a little scary.
I heard
bit in
it.
it. Yeah.
Got a little
Yeah.
like scary haunted cabin-y vibey.
Yeah.
Scarier than the haunted cabin there.
Please don't.
So Outer Wilds Echoes of the Eye.
Yeah.
That
A
justifies
huge surprise.
a big surprise.
Huge surprise. So that is our 2021 biggest surprises. They were Guardians of the Galaxy and Valheim for Steph. Pete had Dread Hunger and It Takes Two.
True.
Gus had Metroid Dread and Knockout City. And I had Pokemon Unite and Outer Wilds DLC. What are your biggest surprises for 2021 in a video game space? And remember, February happened, so anything that came out then is eligible. Why would he choose to do this now? Why would he choose to move...
Oh, you've ruined... Oh, it was a bit and you fucked
Oh, it was a
up.
bit. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Fucked it up.
He was crawling all.